Howdy, folks. Welcome to the podCAST Iron. My name is Laura Mullen Vermilia, and on this podcast, I interview members of the cast iron art community in order to inspire, educate, and spread ideas about iron casting and cast iron art. On today's episode, our guest is Dennis Peacock. Dennis is a professor emeritus of the University of Tennessee, Knoxville, where he taught sculpture for 31 years. He was also the director of the UT Knoxville's Sculpture Tour program, which was a rotating sculpture exhibition that would feature large outdoor sculptures from across the U.S. and Canada. Dennis is still actively making art, and he's going to tell us all about that and more in this conversation. Dennis, thank you so much for giving me the honor of interviewing you about your career, your life, and your artwork. It was eye-opening to hear about the large breadth of your connections and the influence that you had to so many of the important individuals in our current cast iron art community. Also, it's been inspiring to hear how you originated from such a humble upbringing and seeing how much that you have accomplished in your career, as well as hearing how much you still have to work towards. It's given me a new perspective on what is possible in a lifetime, and I'm sure other listeners will feel the same way. Now, just quickly before we get into the interview, I have to mention our wonderful sponsors. Firstly, the podCAST Iron Show is sponsored in part by individual supporters on Patreon. And yeah, that's about 20 to 25 of our friends and colleagues. So thank you to everyone who has personally joined as a Patreon member to help me afford the production costs of keeping this show going. And I'd also like to thank the top supporters of today's show, which are Sloss Metal Arts, the Metal Museum, and the Western Cast Iron Art Alliance. These fantastic organizations provide a large portion of the funding that is keeping my ability to produce these episodes afloat. So I'm going to take a few moments to introduce them to you now. One longtime top supporter of this show is Sloss Metal Arts, which is a national center for iron casting and metal art. Based in Birmingham, Alabama, they host our national conference on contemporary cast iron art and practices every 2 years. And now that the 2025 National Conference planning has officially kicked off, you're going to want to follow Sloss Metal Arts and the NCCCIAP handles on Instagram, just to keep up to date on all things Sloss related and conference related. And this will include the calls for next year's conference of things like guest furnaces, student cupola competition teams, exhibition entries, and if you want to teach a demo or lead a workshop, or if you have a presentation that you would like to present, or if you have an idea for a panel discussion, all of these programming things will have applications and deadlines. And I'll do my best to try to keep you informed. But if you feel passionate about submitting something, please take these matters into your own hands and keep up with the deadlines as they correspond to your aspirations. But through the grapevine, I've been hearing that different artists have been selected to be Summer Sloss residents. So congratulations to those of you who have been awarded this fabulous opportunity. And if you yourself are interested in having a residency with Sloss Metal Arts, then they're accepting applications for their fall 8-week residency. And the deadline is Monday, June 3rd. And all the information for how to apply is on their website, which is slossmetalarts.com. And if you're interested in really being in the know about conference calls, seriously go to the NCCIAP.com website. That's the conference specific website, and sign up to be on the email list. That way, all of the information will be sent directly to your email inbox. And guys, let's all really help this conference be the biggest one yet. Thank you, Sloss Metal Arts. You are an amazing resource. I'm also thrilled to tell you about another top supporter of this episode, and that is the National Ornamental Metal Museum. The Metal Museum, located in the heart of Memphis, Tennessee, is the only museum of its kind dedicated to preserving, promoting, and advancing the art and craft of metalwork. The Metal Museum offers a unique experience with a rich exhibition schedule, a growing permanent collection, an on-site blacksmith shop and foundry, and education and outreach programming. From demos to classes to master workshops and 2-year apprentices, this museum offers vast opportunities for all skill levels. Mark your calendars for the Fire Casting Conference happening this month, and that will be May 30th through June 2nd, and it's open to students as well as emerging and advanced artists. Additionally, the Metal Museum's exhibition calendar is in a season of casting, and they started off strong in February with the exhibition titled Branching Out, which explores the fascinating ways that mentors, students, and foundries share knowledge in paths of growth which resemble a family tree. And that exhibition is open now and will be open until September 8th. Also, last month in April, casting artist Morgan Lugo's Tributaries exhibition titled It's All Relative opened with a reception and artist talk, and that was on April 21st. And in September, immerse yourself in the works of master metalsmith Preston Jackson. His exhibition titled A Hidden Culture critiques today's society through a methodologized Civil War-era American South. To learn more and get involved, visit their website, which is metalmuseum.org, and follow them on Instagram at Metal Museum. Thank you so much, Metal Museum, for supporting today's episode. Finally, a very meaningful top supporter of the podcast is the Western Cast Iron Art Alliance. They are an organization that consists of iron casting artists in the western states of the U.S., and their organization's goals are to educate, demonstrate, and exhibition cast iron art in the western region of the U.S. And one of the ways that they accomplish this goal is by hosting a conference every 2 years. So start planning to come out west for their conference in the fall of 2024. And this upcoming Western Conference will be at the tail end of October in San Diego, California. The official dates have been released, and it will be October 30th through November 3rd. So get that on your calendar and stay tuned for more information. And I always have to point out that you don't have to live in the West to attend the Western Conference. You should definitely make the trip. They will love to have you, and I'll be there, so I'll love to see you as well. A big thank you to the Western Cast Iron Art Alliance and their board members for their support of this podcast. For more information about this fantastic organization, visit their website, which is wciaa.org. So finally, let's get into this conversation. Thank you so much for tuning in today, and please enjoy. Dennis Peacock, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for letting me interview you today.
You're welcome.
I've never met you in person, and I know very little about you besides kind of what I've heard through the community. But what I ask everybody is, at the beginning of the show, well, Dennis, who the hell are you anyways?
I am Dennis Peacock, no middle initial. My parents thought they were pretentious. And a retired professor, emeritus, from the University of Tennessee in Knoxville. And I've been a working metal sculptor ever since I discovered art, I guess you could say, and I didn't discover that until I was an undergraduate at Western Washington State College. The circumstances were such that I grew up in a logging camp with a 2-room schoolhouse. We had married teachers. The woman took the little room and the guy took the big room, and there wasn't any art, to say the least. I built things all the time, as a young person. Taught myself things. My father got upset with me for sawing my tricycle handlebars with a saw, but his handsaw. But coming out of this 2-room schoolhouse in the mountains and transferring into the 8th grade at Shelton High School, junior high school, actually, Shelton, Washington, small town, little lumbering town. The curriculum there in 7th grade had an art course, but I came in the 8th grade. I never saw that art course, never did it. But I was faced with college prep. You're going to go to college, you got to do this, you got to do that. Almost failed typing because I'm not good at that. but they let me through in one college. In what, I don't know. Spent a year at the University of Puget Sound in Tacoma. Didn't really care for that for a lot of different reasons. Transferred to Western Washington State College. Ran into some interesting people. The fact that art did exist there. They made me an honors student. It was an honors program, which I didn't succeed in because I couldn't, in the end of things, I could not write in the equivalent of master's thesis coming out of undergraduate school. That doesn't matter. I got a lot out of the program. There were some people that were amazing. Walter Wagner, Graham Collier, who wrote a book. And then I kind of had, well, I had three minors at Western, art major, kind of messing around, tried all sorts of things. We did not own torches. We had no welders. So I messed around, made things out of wood, did some ceramics. One day I got to go down to the industrial art shop downstairs, and they had an arc welder. Didn't know how to use it. And I put stuff in the wastebasket next to it. Pulled them out, started working things together. Found out that, oh yeah, I can burn this thing, make a big mess, stick this together, and actually came up with something, which I showed to my sculpture professor, and he thought it was pretty good, and we put it on a base. And shortly thereafter, we had a show called the first annual Drawing and Sculpture and Small Sculpture exhibition in the gallery. And that was kind of, well, regional at least, sort of thing. And I got the piece in, and well, that was interesting. How'd I do that out of nowhere? I can think of some nowheres that I probably, used before. Maybe we'll get that later. So I applied to graduate school at the University of Iowa because of Walter Wagner, my sculpture person, who had been there fairly recently. And as an art historian, I was provisionally accepted in the master's program with an I2 PhD in art history. Okay. And I immediately signed up for 3 graduate art history courses. One of them was by one of the most difficult people around. I won't mention his name, but and I took a sculpture class. And in the sculpture class, I met the other kid from Washington State at the University of Iowa, Norm Taylor. Norm really knew how to work metal. He'd worked on cars and things, custom cars. And so he was able to show me how to turn on the torch, and they actually had one torch. That was good. And the people at the welding store helped out too and stuff. And I kept building things and experimenting with things. Next thing I knew, I'd transferred into MFA in sculpture program.
Yeah.
No telling what the future would be in a situation like that. Anyway, I graduated in about 2.5 years and actually had 3 job offers.
Awesome.
Yeah, even in that era, when there were a few more than there are now. For all the right reasons, I think I chose the University of Tennessee. There was a lake running through the middle of the city. Smoky Mountains were right next door, and everybody on the faculty was from somewhere else.
Yeah.
Other schools, a beautiful representation of things there. My immediate colleague was Phil Nichols, was from Michigan, MFA. That went pretty well. And one of the things related to casting is when I arrived there, the faculty had just had a furnace put in, a melt furnace, a little one, number 30 type thing. And they didn't know how to use it. Well, I've been working with Norm. We built a couple of those things in our studio in Iowa City. So I was able to get that going. And, it went on from there. I spent 31 years at Tennessee. Went through the whole, instructors, associate professor, assistant professor, full professor with tenure, and now I'm retired. Well, retired from professing, but not already inside. So, I think if I back up a little bit and say, how come this happened to me? Little things like my uncle giving me an old beat up rowboat that he'd had. It happened to be a beautiful wooden boat, but it was rotten and stuff. And I rebuilt it, painted it, worked on it, fixed on it as a 13-year-old, and put out on Puget Sound. And somewhere along the line, I traded my bicycle for an outboard motor. And so this was a good thing, But it involved making things, always wanting to make things. Not necessarily art, just making things. And that, I think, is pretty much what led me to doing what I did at Tennessee. I taught, of course, in the beginning, 103, which is three-dimensional design, except it wasn't designed the way I did it. It was beginning sculpture using Mickey Mouse materials, and so I invented a whole bunch of courses of projects. And it was fun. I enjoyed it. And of course, then we had that foundry going, and we started to develop some casting, and we did a lot of other things. I had one colleague did a lot of wood, Joe Falsetti. Phil Nichols was another welder, metal person, which I was at that point, making things and exhibiting. Of course, you'll publish or perish.
Yeah.
So. And Philip Livingston did also say other sculptor. It was amazing. We had 4 sculptors in that size department, but it was because of that freshman 3D design course. And I'll skip ahead to the World's Fair in Knoxville. Knoxville had a World's Fair coming up, and I was getting all ambitious and starting to get into shows and things, and I had probably done a commission or two. I'd have to line it up carefully. So I put in a request to the university to fund my elder colleague, Phil Nichols, and I to put some sculpture on the campus, big monumental pieces. We had to have enough money to really be able to do it. That was on the hill facing the fair site. Because I didn't think they were going to have much at that fair, and they didn't. Well, Calder's Red Dragon turned up. They borrowed that. It was nice. It was really good. But this led to my department head, after he told me I was spinning my wheels, and he was right, he formed something called the ad hoc committee on the placement of outdoor sculpture, and he got every art-related department head in the place, including classics. And they managed to get the university to authorize about 5 acres over the whole 400-some-acre campus, but about 5 acres in different places, a little one here, a little one there, trying to here, something there. So we had the whole campus to work with. And the department head said, okay, he'll pay for anybody I have come to town. Well, that's fine. Nothing else. So, I tapped into people I knew. And we put together a 12-person show, I think, put them out there. It went over pretty well. And we printed a catalog. It wasn't very expensive, but it was a little white thing with hand-drawn map. Everybody was pitching in. Graphic design student did the map and so on. And in the course of putting that little catalog together, I left for the summer to come out here to Washington State. And the graphic designer who was doing the work for me on the catalog chose the name Sculpture Tour. It was the Sculpture Tour. Well, I don't know, it's kind of archaic sounding, but anyway, it was good. I came back and the catalogs were ready. We went through it. And about that time when I got back, the show had been up for a while and the catalog was out. The chancellor's associate Don Eastman called me over and said, I don't want to mess with what you're doing, but would you like a color catalog? Wouldn't it be better? Yeah, fine. So then we began. That's just kind of the bare bones of what all was going on. But this went on for 14 years. We did the sculpture tour for 14 years. And 2 years into it, I believe I was allowed to hire an assistant, executive service assistant. Nobody else, no professor on campus had one of those except the football coach.
Yeah.
So Leanne Mitchell had just graduated and gone off and got a MFA at Colorado, sent me a postcard in her typical style, sort of, ha ha, you didn't think I could do it. So I offered a job, and she took it. She took it, it was miserable pay, no clerk level 8 or something. It was in the beginning. And she came back with the stack that somewhere she had done a spin search on grants. And she didn't even know what we were doing yet, but she was ready when she came. And of course, this all snowballed. And a lot of this to Leanne's efforts and stuff that we got it going, we kept it going. We gathered up an awful lot of work in the course of the years. On campus, we had 200 pieces in East Tennessee between the community colleges that we were going on the side of. I'd say reaching out to. A lot of help from Bill Carl at Walter State Community College, Jerry Chumley down in Chattanooga area. Man, oh man, bunch of people. Anyway, and as I say, we had 200 pieces of outdoor sculpture. And this was made out of absolutely everything you could think of. Most of it was welded because it's outside. It's got to be durable.
Yeah.
It's got to be vandal proof on most campuses. The community colleges didn't have trouble. We did. No resident dormitories. So we're not out there at night looking for something to do. She stayed in that position until, a couple of years before it was over, and Monica Tomachek came to her place for a year and stuff.
Yeah.
And at just about that time, I was hitting retirement age, and I was serious about it. I had other ideas about things to do. And I think, yes, we're getting back to where I was supposed to start, introducing myself. I'm living in a beautiful place in the woods with
now.
With
when did you move from Tennessee to where you are now?
19. I think I bought the property here in 97. That's what I'm confusing. And the property is 11.5 acres, approximately 1,000 acres of saltwater frontage on a small bay, actually an estuary, but it's called Chapman Cove. And this was just wild land. It had been logged and left probably 3 times in century. Bottom part was pasture land growing up. So I started in on this. We leveled the only top of the hill somewhere on the whole piece of land where I could build what is it's essentially the sculpture studio, and it is my home, and it's a library and an art gallery and a lot of outdoor space, which is my version of the sculpture tour. Is just getting going. I'm just getting my work up here.
Yeah.
What I want to say is that, okay, here I am retired and I finally have what I need. It's compound is the word I was working for. This is compound. With the fenced and there's just everything to work with, everything I might want. And here I'm 80 years old. What good is that?
You worked your whole life and you earned it, and now you have everything that you could.
Would be a nice way to say that.
Yeah, and that's something to be proud of.
Well, I am. Just
good.
No, but back to iron. which is your
Yeah.
right. You'd like to know
Well,
something
because
else.
I want to, before we even get to iron though, I want to talk a little bit about and I warned you before we started that I was going to ask you, what kind of work were you making in grad school? Ha! Why are you laughing like that?
Well, I was learning to weld for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Torch weld. We didn't really
Mm-hmm.
have anything else, but we did have torches. And we did
Mm-hmm.
have a foundry. One of the graduate students prior to our generation had built a foundry across the river from the art building. Norm got onto that in a hurry, and everything I know about casting from anywhere comes from Norm Taylor. Uh, Somewhere in there, we did rent a place uptown, Al Graham's old radiator shop, and we're about four of us up there. Norm built foundry. I welded up the lift out equipment for it and so on. We did bronze and aluminum. No sign of iron, or we'd heard it could be done.
Mm-hmm.
That was about the size of it. Um, Norm went to New Orleans for a year. I went to Tennessee. Norm went to the University of Washington after that first time and year and back home, in other words. We
Yeah.
stayed for 38 years. And every summer, I go home, visit relatives and all that stuff, and go up and
Mm-hmm.
get in on Norm's iron pours. At first, it was, he was into that almost immediately, I think, is my memory. But I have more pieces of not quite used iron. I got into covering baskets from Goodwill with Bondo to build patterns, coming up
Yeah.
with forms that I really like. They're still sitting out there. I haven't figured out entirely what I want to do with them yet, and this is nice. I can go ahead and go do that. Um,
Yeah.
and I learned the rudiments of cupolas from Norm.
Mm-hmm.
Got to see how he just kept developing them.
Mm-hmm.
Learned CO2 sand casting. Learned about its chemicals. Uh, None of which I really took back to Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I took the ideas back. We could discuss it, but we were
Yeah.
doing iron there until Remy Hanneman came along and built us a cupola.
Yeah.
Other than that, all the iron I did, I was all over the South. Down at Skipton Mountains, every anywhere I could find, and
So
yeah,
well, let me clarify for myself though, because I had originally asked you the type of work that you were making in grad school, and you
there you
just
go.
said
And I got
you,
off the track.
yeah. Well, no, I didn't know. I wanted to give you the benefit of the doubt if you didn't want to talk about it, because you just
Well,
said, well, I was still learning how to weld then, and we only
yeah,
had torch welding. And then you went, so I didn't know if that was a strategic diversion.
no, I'm sorry if that
Okay.
came across that way. It's not what I had in
No,
mind.
I was just
No,
giving you the benefit of the doubt.
well,
Yeah.
I was kind of limited. Didn't have a lot of money for one thing, so I had to scrap up what I could, uh, parts and pieces here and there, and especially fairly thin gauge. I was really pleased to get a hold of, 1/8 inch steel plate or something. And what happened there, a more affluent grad student abandoned a piece on campus and salvaged it because they wanted it off campus, which was not authorized. Uh, and thanks to him, I had some material to work with. And what I did is develop, and these pieces are still around. Allison and Noah, I have two of them, as a matter of fact.
Okay.
Um, they were my Walker series. They were painted steel, and one of them had plastic surface. Um, Foam even, probably, that was new then. Uh, but and painting them, I think I did with brush at that point. And when I got to Tennessee, I went ahead and changed them in. I learned to spray paint and did auto surfaces on them.
Okay.
Continued that kind of out of flyers and walkers, and that was sort of the titles that got in there. They were all 7 feet, maybe something like that, big for the time. Um, and it was the first one I did when I got to Tennessee, coming right out of that work,
Yeah.
was Tennessee walking horse. Painted the color. Of course, it didn't look like a horse at all. It was just more like a walking beam from a steam engine or something. So always kind of geometric, organic, always attitude, never a minimalist, for example. Staying on a scale and a weight that could handle on a budget, among other things, and actually be practical. It was small enough to haul around to get in shows everywhere. But that takes me to another place on the sculpture tour. We didn't have much iron in the tour, not much, because it's heavy, hard to move. And for a long time, we really just weren't ready for that. Meantime, there's a revolution going on in the arts in the Southeast. Iron was happening. And I began to attend other people's iron tours, like I had done with Norm. It was familiar. And so more parts. And I think one of the nights.
Well, so but then I got a little bit lost with Norm when you were talking about it, but I didn't want to interrupt you.
Oh, you should.
So you were friends, you were grad school mates with Norm,
Yeah.
but then where did Norm learn iron from?
Taught himself, I think, although I think Julius Schmidt was one of the people that, but by and large, he just liked that and got found out about it, became actually, really, really good at it. He can do whatever he wants to with iron. No, he was at that same time, he was doing big casting, bronzes. I have some of those in my place here. I sort of am custodian of his work. He's pretty old, and
Yeah.
his wife doesn't love the stuff around so much. But
Yeah.
I'm happy for the opportunity for that.
Mm-hmm.
But he cast in aluminum, he cast in bronze. We all were just kind of weaving around what this stuff was. And this iron was becoming more and more possible.
And so you said he went, it slipped my mind already. He went, did he go to New Orleans?
Just for a year.
Did you?
It was
And
at first,
was there iron in New
I don't
Orleans?
think so.
Was this right out of grad school? You and he graduated, he went to New Orleans, you went to Tennessee?
Yes, that was exactly
Okay, all
what
right.
happened.
And then when you would visit him, was it in New Orleans?
No, never got down there
Okay.
till many
So
years later.
after New Orleans, he went back to Washington.
And I went back to Washington to visit he got the University of Washington. He was from Eastern Washington.
Okay.
I didn't
Okay.
get to come back to Western Washington and where all my relatives live, and now
Yeah.
being retired.
Yeah.
But okay, that was all.
So now I think I've got that. So you were experiencing cupola iron casting with Norm in Washington
Yeah,
when you would go and visit for the
as soon as he
summers.
got it going.
Yeah. And so that's where you first saw it.
Yeah.
But then you were actually closer to the southeast.
Well, right in the middle of it.
Right. And so now I'm with you, and when you start talking about going to Skip Van Houten's and
Yeah,
other places,
yeah.
like would you go to Atlanta with George Beasley?
No, I never got to know George.
Okay. So now I'm with you. So
Okay.
you're talking about well, so you talked a little bit about the work that you were making when you moved from Iowa to Tennessee was similar, but then how did it develop as the years went on? Because I'm assuming it did. I mean, I
Oh,
kind of
it
feel like
did.
I
It
could see that
definitely
in your
did.
portfolio.
Uh,
Yeah.
I began to get a lot more interested in organic forms and size, scale. And I
Mm-hmm.
got into making some commission work. I think the first really big thing Title is quarterbanker, which I have right out here in my backyard right now. And I think it's like 16 or 18 feet tall, good thick steel stuff. And it's called quarterbanker because the very first, we had no sabbaticals at Tennessee.
Hmm.
Just didn't do that. Um, but we had a resourceful department head, Don Kirka, who figured out a way that we could bank quarters. If we taught 3 extra classes over a period of time, we got a quarter off. This is before we went to semesters, of course. Uh,
Yeah.
and so I managed for the first time to get a block of time, uh, which was essentially summer and fall, to build this thing. Really was able to get in there. And by that time, I had my studio up there, concrete block building, uh, 20 by 30. Um, I even had a Chicago sculptor. I was also in grad school with Barry Tinsley. Came down to help me put up uh, a bridge crane, which I actually have up here again where I am now. That helped immensely. I could go ahead and lift all this stuff up, weld it together. And I began to learn how to arc weld, which was a real help with the heavier steel. Um, Able to invest in equipment. I got a hold of an air compressor. I got a hold of a little Lincoln arc welder that wasn't quite good in that little red box. Got a engine driven AC/DC, and that got me. I was able to do stainless with that, and an arc air torch of all things to cut the stainless with, because boy, that stuff. Uh, I gave that to Skip. I think at one point when I figured he needed it more because I had a plasma cutter by then. These things do happen.
Yeah. And
Well,
it's good to give friends gifts
and
if you don't need it.
I'm skipping over, well, like some of the first iron, as a matter of fact. Once again, Barry Tinsley was teaching up at Eastern Kentucky, and he sort of set me up for building a piece for their student center. I don't remember. I didn't get a lot of money for it, but it was the first stainless thing that I ever did. And it's still there, I think. I was in communication with someone a few years ago and wanting to know about it. I didn't know a lot about how to polish the surface, how to deal with the surface, but I got the form together, and it was arc welded, of course, and that's not real good. But so that was probably the first stainless piece I did, and then I moved on from there. Managed to win a hospital corporation purchase from a show in at Cheekwood, I believe, in Nashville.
Hmm.
And that's, I think, still there. They inquired about it at least some years ago. And that was wood and stainless combination. And then I had a whole bunch of other things. I think all my dentistry and all my family's dentistry in the 70s went to my local dentist because, because he got a piece or two out of me. Uh, Dr. Charles Wells, give him dentists should do that. Um,
Yeah.
and then it just kind of took off, and I got better opportunities to do bigger things that cost, and this was all simultaneous by that time with the sculpture tour. Getting really in just running around doing these things, and somehow I suspect she probably had something to do with me getting to some of these shows, uh, you know, to some of these boars. Um, and at some point in all the progression of these things, one summer I went home, and Norm had a graduate student doing this really interesting work, big wheel piece, tour de force, and this was Tanya Seidner, who later got a job at Tuscaloosa. Yeah, and I believe she's somewhere in Texas now and stuff.
Yeah.
Uh, and I don't know if she's gone on to do some things, but that was a major piece. And somewhere in there, I bought a trailer, a two double axle trailer, and could pull it with my truck. And I was pulling things across the country and all over the place. And this is part of how the sculpture tour happened too. We could help out there some.
Yeah, I was gonna ask if there was funding for artists to, because I feel like Remy talked about sculpture tour, and when I interviewed him, he said, a sculptor would show up with a gooseneck trailer and all this stuff.
Yes.
And so,
Yeah.
but
Uh,
I think that was probably
that was
later.
late. That was Lemmy.
Okay.
Lemmy was
So,
like my last graduate student. And that
mm,
tour was very well established by then.
okay. So
Um,
early on, though, it was you with a trailer going.
no, I didn't do all of that. I mean, the deal was, and that had to do with the size, the nature of the pieces we asked for. It had to be durable. It had to be a size we could deal with. If
Yeah.
they could get it to us, the physical plant pitched in with equipment and men helped immensely. We couldn't have done it without them.
Yeah.
The grounds crews and people like that. They poured us concrete pads, and they would be there with a crew or with whatever equipment they happened to have. And somewhere near, we came up with a forklift, old surplus Air Force thing that we had that to work with. There was this ongoing development here, always and we got in a new building with
Hmm.
lots of good facilities, and the foundry I got to design all that. And the foundry was number 200 Crucible. I don't think we did that much, but big anyway. We could have been.
Yeah.
We had an old electric burnout kiln that would take care of that. We had a huge sand pit and uh, overhead tram lift system and glass wall on one side so that the undergraduates could stand in safety and watch us pour. Just an extra. I think they changed that into something else about the time I left. But
Mm.
yeah, God, it's all just mashes together because it was all attached.
Hmm.
Anyway, people would drive. We gave them gas mileage once we got some funding. The tour people got gas mileage in government, so much a mile, uh,
Yeah.
and $100 honorarium. That was to show our hearts were in the right place. And somewhere
Yeah.
along the line, we got the university to put together a purchase fund. So things got, more and more elaborate. We got some bigger things, and we got a few pieces with iron parts,
Hmm.
uh, more than actually all iron. But
Yeah.
in the meantime, it's going on all around us, and I'm getting out there and learning about this and getting lots of pieces for me and, interacting with everybody, meeting some really neat people. And I think it was one of the last things well, sure, would have been one of the last things I did back there. The pour I attended was at Georgia, and I took my then graduate student, Letitia. Uh, it was like, okay, everything was kind of coming together in a very nice kind of way. Um, but I quit. That was about the time. Okay, now I got to go home.
Yeah.
You know, and so here I am at home.
Yeah. Well, so I just wanted to circle back though to Norm's student that you mentioned who was making
Hmm.
the large wheel piece. You
Yeah,
said Tanya?
yeah.
Um
Tanya
so
Steiner.
was that piece featured in the sculpture tour at some point?
I don't think so.
Oh,
She's
is
never had
that
it out. She didn't, at the time anyway, she wouldn't put it outside because she didn't want it to get rusty. It's
Oh.
beautiful. It's fresh cast looking. And this is years
Mhm.
ago, of course.
Oh yeah.
I
Yeah.
think she had an opportunity to put it up at one of the museums in Texas, but outside, and she didn't want to do that.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
haven't talked to her for years, so
Yeah.
don't really know what the fate of that was, but it's a
Mhm.
big, beautiful, serious casting.
Mhm.
It's online.
Mhm.
It's online. Okay.
Okay. So is that what prompted you to buy the trailer?
Oh,
So,
no, no, no,
oh,
no.
okay.
The
Because
trailer.
we were talking about her and
I
Norm, and
think
then
maybe
we got,
Jack Braun or somebody like that came in with a trailer, or Skip, as a matter of fact. Skip and his fetish for tires that would come apart as you go down the road.
yeah.
All the sculptors I was, and Barry Tinsley, of course, all the sculptors I was encountering had a trailer.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so this 12-foot trailer, and I got dual axles, and I put that kind of little hand uh, hydraulic lift on it, and did a lot with it. Brought it out here. I've used it out here quite a bit of time, and I've sort of given up trailering now,
Mm.
uh, and gave it to the girl next door
Oh, good.
because she has been very helpful. She and her father both. Uh, two things I've had to set up around here.
Oh,
And
awesome.
I've just gotten to the point where I just don't feel like hooking up the trailer and backing it up and being worried about it.
Yeah.
I'm just, I'm not retired, but I'm just taking it easier.
Well, I
With
don't blame you. I
uh,
mean, I don't know how to back up a trailer. So, I've just never had to. Oh,
oh,
no, no, no. This isn't about
that
me. This isn't
this
about
no this
me.
this brings me to my favorite backup trailer story, if you don't mind me
Oh,
going
oh,
off.
yeah. I'd love to
Okay,
hear
I'm,
it.
I'm in Boone with one of my big pieces, Boone,
North
North Carolina,
Carolina. Okay.
in the show. I drive all the way over there from Knoxville. Got the piece on the trailer. The site they've picked for me is way up through the grass up a sidewalk. I drove in there after I'd driven all the miles from Knoxville. I just drove right up there, and there it was. And we got the piece put up and everything. And then I'm thinking, well, how do we get out of here now? I got to back out. And
Oh.
somewhere in there, I talked to a trucker who was unloading things over next door or something. And I was pretty apprehensive about how I'm going to get this out of here now. I'm not real good at this. Well, I got in it, relaxed, had lunch, I think, with somebody and so on, and backed her up just like that, right down the pavement and around and stuff. And he was still down there. The trucker said, "Yep, took her out of there just like a trucker." So I was complimented, but no, I've got to the point where I just can't deal with it.
Oh,
I'm not
yeah.
good at backing up the car now.
Oh,
I want to go forward.
yeah. Yeah, I can understand that. Yeah.
Well, I hope I'm not getting too far afield for you.
No, I mean, I'm actually finding it very interesting because we're talking a little
Thank
bit
you.
about this here, a little bit about that here, because
Yeah,
it's like, you know, our brains aren't necessarily going to remember things chronologically.
no, they don't. You
No.
know, that's why I dug out my sculpture tour catalogs to see. One thing I didn't remember about it is that after the first couple of years, we went to a biennial format. So there are
Mm-hmm.
less total shows, but they
Mm-hmm.
were all bigger. We were
Yeah.
hitting about 30 pieces on campus.
Mhm.
And, but still, the situation was they would be more like uh, fabricated pieces.
Okay.
Or this
Yeah.
piece, Norm was about the only one that actually sent. I picked it up at the Ornamental Metals Museum in Memphis, as a matter of fact. He did it there. I got it and put it in a sculpture tour. And
Mm-hmm.
now it's down here in my front yard.
Yeah.
About 14 feet high, I think, something like that. It's a model for a piece for the show in Japan. That it's about a half-size model. So there is a big version of it in Japan, and then I've got this one in my. But it's a bronze figure falling out of the sky on its head onto a cast iron little building, tall little building, open. Uh, and that's not good. Well, anyway, it's probably online someplace.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that, just in immediately looking at all these things, that's one of the few genuinely iron pieces that we had in the show. Look up Charlie. It was metal. I was welded. Uh, Skip. And yeah, no boy. you know, it's just easier to move things around than it is to move around big cast iron stuff. And big cast iron is what I think the iron people really like to do, but a biggie is what I like to do, but I just can't deal with that.
Well,
So
I think that it varies. And a lot of people in the cast iron art community will cast components, but then fabricate
yeah,
steel, or now it's really wide open. There's lots of mixed media, there's performance, you know.
tons of plastic,
Mm-hmm,
rolled
mm-hmm.
up and so on.
Plaster, like,
You know, all
yeah.
no plaster, that's archaic. We can't do that.
Oh, we can.
Maybe concrete.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway,
So we were talking about, we were still kind of reminiscing about the sculpture tour. And at this point I feel like we can kind of talk about
something else.
whatever you, well, no, we can keep, if you want to keep talking about how that developed, or how your work developed throughout your time teaching.
It was affected by, the work that I saw, the work that
Mm-hmm.
I helped install on my campus, the people I met, which included iron casters, and getting to go to casting, to actual pours. Uh, and I was going to tell about my very last one with Norm, as he was retiring after 38 years. Um, he had just finished two of the most, very compact, beautiful little cupolas, two industrial vacuum cleaner motors, and he was getting iron in 15 minutes, just almost 483. He just had it under control. And that was his last foundry class. And I sat in on it. And, it's like I was totally amazed that, okay, he has developed this thing for so far and so long. And I've had the opportunity to witness it.
Yeah.
Uh, and then all the rest of the people doing it. A little story I want to tell you for sure. Going down to one of Skip's pours, uh, drive down all the way to Hattiesburg from Knoxville. And before I went, I put together a pretty good size sand mold. Um, and the pattern, I think, was wax in a basket and wood, and I think sawed off PVC pipe and a few things like that. Embedded down in the sand. Okay, I had to try something. I took the binder that we had and mixed it up, molded up with our Muller was a cement mixer, but
Mine is too.
okay, yeah, well,
Yeah.
you do what you do.
Yeah.
But anyway, I tried some silica sand, which should have worked, I thought. Came something we got up in East Tennessee, straight off a mountain someplace. We'd have mounds of it in the backyard at
Yeah.
the rooms. Should have worked. Okay, so I went ahead and I made a mold, uh, two piece, and okay, didn't bother to open it up. I just put it on the trailer. I think I did it on the trailer, as a matter of fact. Drove down there, got down there, things were starting to warm up and so on. And I started to take the top of the mold off, just powdered. I've driven how many miles? I had, all those hours of work, and the mold the bottom held,
Okay.
and the actual pattern was in there,
Uh-huh.
no problem, but just one of the top mold just fell apart
Huh.
out of
Okay.
nowhere. These three guys that I don't know who they were or whatever else, or where they got the material, they came out of there and they made me a new top for that thing.
At
Uh,
Skip's, at
you know,
Skip's,
for what
at Skip's place.
at Skips, yeah, I don't know where. And I was good to go. And I just kind of think, well, that's kind of the spirit of a lot of these things, get in there and help each other. That's worth something,
Yeah.
quite a bit of something. Um, yeah, I wanted to get that in there.
Yeah.
So what else can I tell you?
If you want to talk a little bit more about Skip, I think that would be great. I've
Do you really want to?
I've never
Yeah.
met him before,
Oh, you're
and
kidding. You're
I
kidding.
know that he has, well, I mean, I came around, I told you I didn't start studying with Jimbo until late 2009,
Yeah.
and so a lot of the original founders of the movement had kind of
Yeah,
you
they
know,
were
turned
aging out.
over, they had turned over the movement to maybe some of the more up and coming younger, and so
The
I
ones that hadn't gone to plastic and old tires.
yeah, yeah. And so I'd really like to learn more about your experiences with him and
Oh yeah, okay. He skipping tires. Have you ever heard anything about Skip and his tires?
no.
Well, he had a big trailer, he had a truck, and he had a gallery in D.C. This is the one I remember. What things going on? And he made a rock box sort of thing. We had it on campus later, but he'd taken it all the way up to D.C. And then stopped on the way back. And I don't know how many tons of rock he had on that trailer, and then the steel frame that it went in. And he had installed it up there, or he was bringing it back. I don't remember which. Either way, it ended up on our campus for a while. But here's Skip with about 10, I don't know, that's exaggerating, 3 or 4 trailer tires on the back of the trailer, all blown up,
Oh
all,
no.
just wrecked. And they take a look at them and say, I think they started out that way. And so I gave him, my father was a tire man sometimes, and I gave him the lecture about safety and rubber tires. And he's agreed, yes, sir. And he'd only paid $2 at the service station for those. And and he had to do some repairing on the trailer and so on. He went on down the road. I don't think he changed his ways at all. Uh, he would turn up sometimes on his way to somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
My old man would I'd be teaching class or something in there, something's going on, I'd turn and here's Skip standing there with a little smile on his face. You know, just nice. It was good. And, went down there one time to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Was really tired. We had a very nice time. We were all kind of relaxed and enjoying it, sort of just artist roundtable and his family and stuff. And then I had to go to talk, and it was more fun to stay with Skip. But anyway, that got done. No, yeah, I don't know. Well, there was a promise some years ago when I came out here. I think Skip and Durant were supposed to get in his Airstreamer and come out and visit me. Never happened. Uh,
Well,
he's here. He says he's here
yeah,
now.
Durant here. It's not
Okay,
it's not too late.
not too late. No, that's true. Oh, he's been here before.
Okay.
We talked about Durant. A very useful guy to have around, I'll tell you.
Well,
No,
so
he's responsible for me being here. He got me here.
mm,
Drove the biggest U-Haul trucks twice, the biggest ones they rent to amateurs, pulling my trailers, all loaded, all that heavy steel that I thought I had to bring, all the equipment, all that. He only balked when we got to my mother's house, and it was necessary to carry, 25 or so liquor boxes down some stairs to the basement.
yeah.
They're full of LP records, so they're very heavy. you
Oh,
know, that's kind of a stupid fetish of mine. When collecting records, when they said you had to buy CDs, that was about the time frame.
yeah.
Vinyl, and funny, and yeah, I was right. See, vinyl's on its way back.
It is. You were
It
right.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a reason for that. But anyhow, that was the only time that Durant balked a little. There was nothing about I wasn't told I had to take these downstairs. you know. He did, of course.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, and
So, do you want to tell me a little bit about when Durant was working for you?
when he was,
Mm-hmm. Because you're the reason why he went to grad school, right?
I guess. What I remember is, okay, Michael Dougherty, head of the school, Baton Rouge. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he was one of our first graduates. And so then he, went down there and he was being very effective getting, assistantships, for example, for our students. That's a little hard to do sometimes. And Durant was coming out of our program, and I think, it applied down there and got in for sure. And then he did a whole bunch of absolutely amazing, a chess set over life size is his graduate work, or graduate thesis. I
Yeah.
drove down for that, 10-hour drive, of course. I don't know if he appreciates that or not, but anyway, uh, it was fantastic. With the opening was fantastic. He had stanchions made out of iron cast trombone horns. It's my pattern. He hasn't gotten it back to me either. But and I have a few that I never used, but he used them, and that's good.
Yeah.
Uh, that was how to get into the building, as I recall, in the dark. You get in there, and there's two hefty guys lifting chess pieces made out of iron, big. You'd have to ask him about the real scale, but all the chess pieces, and they were really nice. Looked like a battle, a real battle, sort of what chess is.
Yeah.
Up the whole gallery, and anybody at the open was standing around the outside. And I think there was some music or something.
Hmm.
You'll have to check with him on that.
Yeah.
Just I'm very, very proud of the fact that he was doing that. I guess I wrote him somewhere in there. I wrote him probably one of the best recommendations I've ever written. I don't remember if it was to get there or to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, yeah, Mr. Durant. Uh, as I say, I can't thank him enough for getting me here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. There's a long way across the country. We're sitting somewhere in Kentucky having a lunch, and I was struck by the fact that the place we were in was a shed roof kind of thing, tilted one way, not peaked, just a tilt. It was a good space. I kind of liked that. And when I got out here, I started designing. I never drew the buildings that I have here, but I built models
Mm-hmm.
of all these kind of shed roof buildings, and that's what I've got now. Uh, just kind of goes back to that time. Part of that, let's ride across the country and think about things because Durant's doing all the work. That was good.
Yeah.
Of course, we got the absolutely nastiest U-Haul truck we had asked for on the second time.
Mm-hmm.
One,
Mm-hmm.
one of the tires was out, the door wouldn't close, and it's a good thing it ran all that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, we made it, turned it in, and asked the people to please don't send that back out on the road.
Yeah.
No idea, but they might have.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway.
So I was curious about once you retired and moved back to the West Coast,
Mhm.
did your work change any then? Like, how did it evolve then?
Okay. There's been less of it than there should be, for one
Well,
thing,
that's
because I've
that's your
been building this
okay.
compound.
Okay, because I
Uh,
try to encourage people to not be so critical of themselves.
no, I'm not over. I'm not done yet.
Yeah. Okay.
Uh, I've got parts. Well, I have an enormous amount of parts from all those iron tours I went to,
Mm.
including some of the trumpet bells that I have three of those I haven't figured out what to do with yet. Uh, Things I did at Norm's, um, out there in need of being having a little steel fabrication done around them.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, we've dug out a huge maple stump here. The roots are in the way.
Yeah.
It's upside down in my outdoor studio here, and having been carved and hacked down. And I really intend to, but haven't done yet. I'm going to cut a stainless steel plate and put it on an old lamppost thing I have, turn it upside down, roots in the air, and then I'll finish up the rest of it. That's a big piece.
Yeah.
I've been working in wood, uh, not as much as I'd like to, but it's getting there. Of course, I am working on the woods here too, meaning I've got a lot of trees to get out of here before they fall in my buildings. And climate's changing and fire is a danger. California's burning. It might be coming our way. All that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And somewhere while I was out here, I got to attend at Clackamas Community College in Portland. Was invited to participate in two times, 2 years. Fell out the community college there. Didn't have any money, but he had unlimited 4-acre plot full of steel parts from brand new, beautiful stuff would love to have had years ago. Uh, and so what he did is said, okay, come on down and participate, build something. And they set us up with welders. Somebody was doing an English wheel off on the side. There's a lot of things to learn there. And we had 2 days. We stretched it to three. Young sculptor I know in Portland, Mike Surrey, kind of supported me in that. I got to use his plasma cutter. Yeah, it's just twice that happened, and I haul all that steel up here on my trailer. And it's all over the place. And right now I had to move it all because I'm making a fire break around my space. So it's all scattered up and down the fence, but I'm thinking, oh yeah, this is a tank trap in case the enemy comes,
Yeah.
or something. It'd be pretty crazy, but just beautiful stuff out there and
Yeah.
down there. And as I say, I still have and I am working into wood,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
I've gone back to cedar, northwestern cedar. It's an interesting wood. An awful lot of tribes out here did wonderful things, including canoes and everything else out of the big ones. Yet the little ones, there's still good wood in there.
Yeah.
Right now, we have about a 60-year-old power pole that I've kind of got all the bad stuff off of, and I'm about to make apart.
Uh-huh.
A wooden piece that I salvaged out of a captain's chair. A good one. I got the whole top and did some work on it, and it's already been done. There were 4 of these captain chairs. So I built a piece called 3 captains. Now I've got one captain chair left, and that's going to get built into what's here. This is kind of where I am. Uh, Stuff all over the place. What are I going to do with this? What are I going to do with that? And it's limited. It's lovely.
That's so interesting. And it's encouraging to hear that,
Well, thank you.
the more, well, I mean, sometimes, and this is a little bit on the personal side, but it's kind of like I feel like I don't have enough time.
Oh, none of us do.
But hearing how you are finally where you have the equipment that you need and you have the time to do, like, this is what you've worked your whole life to,
Yeah, if
you
if
know,
I last long enough, something will be good. You
yeah.
know,
Yeah.
did I mention how old I am?
You said 80?
Yeah,
Yeah.
halfway to 81.
Mhm.
But Durant walked me all over the place yesterday. I'll tell you, he was bent on making me go all these places.
Yeah.
You took me.
All right, now settle down. I can't, do I have to separate you?
Yeah, well, enough of that. We got to get back to the serious part.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but yeah, it's just been really encouraging for me to talk to all of these guests because I feel like, you know,
You're
in school they,
experiencing your kind of sculpture tour.
yeah.
Because
Oh,
that's the kind of response I had to all those years, all those people coming through with those ideas and good ideas, and a lot to learn from all of them, and it's wonderful.
yeah,
Uh,
I think you
Not
hit
just
the,
technical, but aesthetic.
yeah.
Uh, just it's an idea of community that should be somehow easier to maintain, and you're doing something about it. So that's
Yeah.
good. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I think you're right. This is my style of sculpture tour in a way.
It is, as
That's such
far as
a
I can tell.
that's such an interesting observation.
especially if you keep this up long enough to get an enormous catalog of people you talk to.
I really hope that everybody is on board to be interviewed because I've got like the longest list. And most people you've actually either influenced, taught, or mentioned.
There's a lot of that, but that was part of that's just because of the sculptor tour and the location. And of course, always you get your grad students going out there or your undergrads who are your exceptional undergrads going out there doing stuff.
But I
Yeah,
feel
maybe,
like it was
then there's
you.
Remy. We talked
Yeah,
about
well,
Remy.
so he said that you were the reason why he went to the first iron pour at UGA.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Me
You
too.
were saying we're
Brad
going.
said him too. And I'm thinking, yeah, I
uh,
miss. Okay, what is
s-
I just gave Durant a bunch of one of those little panoramic cameras that you do. I did of an iron pour down there, but I don't
Oh,
think it was that first one. I must have been down there more times than I thought.
About five or
And,
six.
huh?
5 or 6.
5 or 6 times, I guess I went. Well, I know Leanne and Jim for a long time.
yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, well, I took a piece down there that I built for the gallery, as a matter of fact. It's out in my other courtyard here
Mhm.
at this point.
Was it the oh my gosh, I think it was the Thomas Street Art Annex or something like the
Yeah,
gallery
yeah,
out there
yeah.
that you could see down a balcony and there was
Yes.
big
Yeah.
windows on one side.
Yep. The Thompson Gallery.
Yeah. So you
Uh,
built a piece specifically for that space?
I built the piece because I had an opportunity to show it.
Okay. Okay.
And
I
it's
understand.
it's a
In
little
that
track.
space.
It's a little track piece, and it has. I'm mixing it up a little. I did some of that for the South Carolina State Museum. Maybe I
Okay.
was repurposing that one.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
anyway, I remember being out there in the courtyard, the sculpture courtyard there, and washing a couple tons of ornate gravel to pack upstairs and get around. It was an installation when I put it in Thompson.
Wow.
It was at the museum too, but different. They changed.
Mm. Mhm.
Time you
Yeah.
move them, it's a different space, and you got some more stuff, and things get lost or broken.
I do know. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But wow, I went to that many of them.
Yeah, that's where you got Noah and Allison
Well, yeah, yeah.
and me and a bunch of other people. You took them all down there.
Yeah, well, I'm remembering best the last time though, when Letitia was the one that was she's my last graduate student in that, I left about in the middle of her graduate program.
Mm. Mhm.
But that was the time I guess I got a lot of, I don't know, feedback about taking my students all the way down there to an iron pour. There's an earlier iron pour that they were using an A-frame that I gave Jim. Uh, you know, to in other words, I did participate once again with facilities or something. It
Yeah.
was not the same as the uh, crucible holders that I did for Norm in grad school, but
Yeah.
similar idea. This is for holding up the hot metal, overhead while you can do that.
Yeah, like the big bull ladle.
Uh,
You made an
yeah,
A-frame.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Because by the time I was there, which was pretty much at the, I mean, it wasn't, he didn't retire right after I graduated, but it was maybe about 3 years after I graduated. But by the time I was there, he had a boom crane that had been installed by the school and
Uh,
he
uh,
had a lot of it. Uh,
I never got to see any of that. We were out there in the gravel, and I had made this little, just an A-frame to kind of make it possible to pick things up without hurting yourself and hold
yeah.
it. And it was on wheels, and I figured Jimbo needed it, so and I think he altered it and cut it up and maybe even threw it away. I don't know, and I
Yeah.
don't know what happened to it.
Yeah. That's
these things happen.
Yeah. Yeah. So I feel like we've done a pretty good job so far. I want to see if there's anything major that you feel like we've missed or
Boy,
breezed over that you want to
oh boy.
revisit.
It seems like, just started, all kinds of little chains of thought,
That's
and I
okay.
didn't think you'd be quite like this, but there's just things just keep popping up. Uh,
Yeah.
well, it's 30 something years, and well, it's actually more than that. You consider it all.
Yes.
Well, that I've been in this business for a long time and thoroughly enjoyed it. Uh,
That's so good to hear.
and if you get up to, say, Winston-Salem University, I got a big piece there, one of my
Yep.
best, three-part, going
Mm-hmm.
down the hill. It was a commission.
Mm-hmm.
If you get to Chattanooga, I've got a major in the Provident Life and Accident building. I have a relief above the escalator. I
Okay.
was in there taking pictures of it one day, and here comes a rather executive-looking guy
Mm-hmm.
riding down. He kind of looks, and he has a little smile, and he says, "Oh, you're photographing the Swiss Army wheel." I love it. Why not? It means they're interacting with it,
Yeah.
and
And they're looking at it.
and they're looking at it. TVA has a piece also in Chattanooga, a big sort of in a not exactly a pond or a fountain, just a cinder place.
Mm-hmm.
It's about a 12 or 14-foot stainless. Um, is it Tullahoma? Yes, Tullahoma's got a little teeny one made out of the leftovers from the. You know, I cut a blade off one of the big stainlesses that wasn't right. Well, it was enough to do a little commission for the city of Tullahoma. Is
Good.
it?
So you're using every
Oh yeah, I
everything.
mean, all the time. You don't waste stainless steel; it costs too much.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I feel like many of your pieces that I saw on your online portfolio on your website are
Good.
very I want to say boat silhouette inspired.
Oh yeah, okay, you hit it. Good for you. I was going to mention boats
Okay.
way back at the beginning, and I got tangled up.
Well, you
Uh,
told me about the one that
so
your
about
uncle
the
had
rowboat,
given. Yeah.
but I sailed as an undergrad. Never had an opportunity to get in a sailboat until I went to college,
Okay.
and then we were borrowing. It was always Poverty Row. We borrowed from the Sea Scouts at UPS, the University of Puget Sound. And we borrowed from whoever we were sailing against, UBC or UW. They had coaches, they had everything. We just came and learned
Yeah.
to sail out there, and that was part of good. And that's been a long time dream, and I bought a sailboat the minute I got out here. It's been sitting there. I've never rigged it. I've never got it out. I don't really have a good way to get it to the water at this place.
Mm.
It's high mud bank, which is why I can afford it, but I'll do something about that someday. But I hope to someday do a little more sailing, just because it's about the forces, it's about the wind, it's about controlling those things, and that's very much part of it.
Yeah.
Okay, I had a show in Winston-Salem in the gallery, and they printed up my pictures of the Peter Iredale, the hulk of a sailing ship, an iron ship, on
Okay.
the beach and south over, sort of directly over from Portland,
Yeah.
uh, on the Pacific seaside, I believe. It just sailed right up onto the sand in about 1906 or something, and they couldn't get it off, so it just sit there for all those years. And when I saw it, it was like 15 years old with my little brownie Hawkeye or whatever. And I did a series of pictures of it. I was absolutely intrigued by it. It's steel, these shapes. It was a clipper type hull with a beautiful. I carried that with me, and when I did the show at Winston-Salem, that went along with my doing the commission there, I got to have a gallery show, of course. uh, they blew these up. They blew up my things, and we framed them up and put them on the wall. Um, That's a big influence. I was always interested in ships, shipping, clipper ships, and that was a good part of it. Rowing around in the rowboat my mother's uncle gave me, things like that. You being able to build it. I got an A minus in shop class on a very complex planing project for the oarlock supports in that boat. It had been made by a real craftsman sometime. And
Yeah.
you know, it was elaborate, but it was something I learned something and I liked it. And it has to do with the forces involved, getting out there in the wind and the water and so on. That's important to me.
Yeah. And
It's
it
one of the
sounds
reasons
like in working with them,
yeah, and working and
like
yeah,
controlling it, working with it.
yeah, no, all of these things are forces organically
Yeah.
and paying attention to what steel wants to do. I guess that might be one of my little bit of a problem I have with iron. It doesn't bend. You know,
Yeah.
it's so that's why I'd prefer personally to use it as parts. I
Mhm.
can cast it into what I want,
Yeah.
um, but it doesn't bend enough to be, a major piece for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was going to say something else, but I forget.
Was it about boat making? Was it about
Could
boats
have been, yeah.
or
Because you had a lot of rib influence with your boats.
Ribs.
yeah.
So, yeah, thank you, Durant. The
Yeah.
ribs. Uh, well, that's the funny thing, and I've decided the ribs are maybe. Well, are you there?
Yeah.
Or is that
Yeah. Oh, did I
okay?
froze?
You were
Okay.
frozen
Yeah.
again for
Well,
a
no, that's
minute.
because I
Uh,
was just in
okay.
such
Uh, Bonacorsi with Jim and Leanne, or wasn't Jim and Leanne, it's his first wife, and he living in the coffin factory in Knoxville. Bonacorsi brought in some chairs from the coffin factory. They were in these ways, they were just stored in there. And they were sort of bucket barrel chairs, real old ones. And he just dumped them off in the backyard. And I got to put those in the dumpster, get them out of here. Picked up an axe and hit one right in the middle of the curve. And it just kind of bounced. I said, wait a minute, this is a pretty well made chair. So I took it apart. And I've still got these two oak ribs. I worked them over with a wood plane. There's still an axe mark right in the middle. And
yeah.
and I took these things with me to one of the summer things and cast, I think those were the things I did CO2 and had to ship them home to Knoxville for $90.
Wow.
But
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah,
mhm,
cast of an iron.
cast in iron solid. That's what happened. I think you're trying to freeze again. I think you're bumping. I
Oh,
hope
well,
that's
yeah,
good.
we were a little bit glitchy for a second. I think it's cleared up.
Okay, yeah,
I
that's
think
good.
it's cleared up.
Uh,
Yeah.
and so then those are there, the ribs are there. That's where they came from. And
Hmm.
I backed away a little bit, but the steel place where I bought some of my steel for, well, I think it was actually for the Winston-Salem piece, maybe. They got a new tool which would bend uh, angle iron basically, but they could bend, they could they could fold over a piece of steel, or they just take a piece of steel, and anyway, they could make rib shapes.
Uh-huh.
So I got a bunch of those. I bought them, and altered them. That piece is down here too in my lower field.
Yeah.
Built another rib piece. I still have the parts that I cut off in my scrap pile because I never give it up.
Yeah.
Um, it at all. I will do something with those. They're really graceful and nice.
Mm. So I think that it might be a good time for us to wrap up a little bit
Yeah.
and go on over to the after show. But I was wondering if you could give us some advice in closing.
I've been trying. I've been trying all along here.
You've known that this was coming. You knew I was going to try and bring one more gem out of
Well,
you.
no, that's fine because I don't know why anyone would listen to my advice sometimes, but that's what I did for 30 years was offer
Yeah.
advice or more, and it took on some people, I guess.
Yeah.
Looking at
Well,
one sitting over here.
yeah.
No advice. A, don't get in for the money because it's not there. It's not what it's about. Uh, trust your instincts. a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
You have to learn some techniques. You have to figure out what you're going to do, and you got to be willing to work.
Mm-hmm.
This is labor.
Mm-hmm.
Um, well, maybe I think some people are doing some really, really not so grinding labor. I'm thinking of Sarah Z. If you know her work at all,
Mm-mm.
New York, work teaches at Columbia. It's wonderful plastic,
Mm.
salvaged plastic hung in linear arrays. Look her up.
Okay,
She's worth
absolutely.
looking at.
Okay.
Uh, I never thought I would be able to deal with that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But if you do it right,
Yeah.
you got to get there. So you do it right for you, and then maybe it'll work for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
So
if that is
if you're not getting into it for the money, what keeps you in it?
what keeps doing
What keeps you in it? If you're not in it for the money,
it.
what keeps you in it?
Curiosity,
Mm-hmm.
sheer curiosity. I just want to know what would happen if I put this here and that there, and would anybody notice that it's kind of interesting? And people do seem to occasionally think it's interesting, and that's where I win. And as far as the money goes, it's you got to do something about that because it's expensive to do this.
Mm.
I could say, well, I taught for all those years to live, to raise two children,
Mm-hmm.
so on. Have something of a normal life that way. Get some equipment to work with,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, put things together in such a way that I could get my resources together and do this. You know, put this
Yeah.
whole thing together.
Yeah.
Hmm,
Yeah.
that enough good answer? I don't know.
Yeah, that's fantastic advice. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah,
Well, if we're ready to go on over to the after show, if you are, if you give me permission, I get to
sure.
go ahead.
We can do that.
Okay. Well, for everybody that's listening and watching for the public side of this, I want to say, Dennis, thank you so much for letting me ask you all these tough questions and make you remember all the nitty-gritty details. Thanks for humoring all of my nitpicking, basically.
I'm just glad that you were here as a guide.
I,
Because as you may have noticed, I'm flopping around a little bit.
I mean, that's life though. That's like what we're all doing in life. I mean, I
I guess
can't,
you're right.
I mean, you have more life experience than I do, but at this point in my life, I feel like that's all I've ever done. It's just like, I'm just doing the best I can,
Yeah, well,
just
yeah.
trying to figure it
Yeah.
out. Nobody taught me how
Yeah,
to
you
do
gotta
things.
you gotta have a little faith in that,
Yeah.
that okay, I'm doing the best I can and it's good enough, I hope, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
I think it is.
but
Yeah.
don't give up on the sweating part,
Okay.
you know.
Yeah.
And anyway, it's very, very I think what you're doing is commendable. Uh really do think that more of this sort of thing is probably, I don't know, gonna get it out there for everybody.
Yeah.
Uh, it wasn't well, I guess just where I grew up, there was no art. That was,
Yeah.
uh,
And now maybe there's more connectivity and more,
well,
more
yeah,
resources, maybe.
yeah. Well, we can sit here and talk like this, how many miles away,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
example. Even if
That's,
I won't touch a button here, I wasn't raised with computers, so I'm a little, you know.
oh yeah. I mean, I think about that. Well, let's talk about it in the after show actually, because usually in the after show, I talk a little bit more. And so it's more of a conversation instead of, and
Okay,
less one-sided. So, but I have thoughts about that. So,
okay,
let's
yeah.
go on over to the after show, but I'm going to address our audience that's listening publicly now. So to everybody that's listening and watching, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope that you've enjoyed this conversation that I've had with Dennis as much as I have. And if you want to come on over to the after show with us, then you know what to do. And we hope to see you over there.
Too.
Thank you so much for tuning in today. This conversation doesn't have to end here. To gain access to the after show, where Dennis and I continue our discussion and we're joined by a surprise additional guest, visit the website patreon.com/thepodcastiron. And for as little as $1 a month, supporters get access to the after show recordings from every episode that's ever been published. So if you're new here, the after show is just an extra 15 to 20 minutes, sometimes more, with each show's guest where we talk a little more candidly and share at least one more story behind the privacy of a paywall. And since it's not super public, sometimes the stories are quite spicy. So yes, if you sign up now, you'll get access to listen to the after show from this episode and from all of the other episodes, and even $1 really will make a difference to subsidize the cost that I undertake to make this resource of the public show available. And then you get the private after shows, so it's a win for everyone. Well, in conclusion of this public portion of the episode, I hope that you enjoyed listening to this interview as much as I enjoyed hearing about all of Dennis's many astounding accomplishments. From his stories, we can tell that he was positioned perfectly to be right in the center of the cast iron art movement as the development was accelerating in the 90s. Also, currently, many of his former students are now in the leadership roles of our movement, and we are all benefiting from this. So Dennis, thank you for sharing your story and for inspiring so many of us throughout the years. You are an amazing role model to this day, and I wish you the best with all of your current and future endeavors. You have truly shown me that there's so much to look forward to, and I'm sure that other folks listening to this episode have felt the same way. In your honor, we will stay passionate. And now, thank you to the top supporters for helping me to afford to continue offering this show. Thank you, Sloss Metal Arts, for being a top supporter and also for your year-round work as a national center for iron casting and metal arts, and for offering our community visiting artists and resident artist opportunities, as well as hosting our national conference. Thank you to the Metal Museum for your support of this podcast and for offering our cast iron art community such amazing exhibition and learning opportunities, as well as foundry apprenticeships. In my opinion, the Metal Museum is one of the premier places in the world to learn the art of iron casting, and to have a museum of this caliber exhibitioning works by artists in our tribe is such a great honor and a gift. Thank you to the Western Cast Art Alliance for being a top supporter of this show. I am so honored and encouraged to have your support, and thank you for the work that you do in the service of the Western region of the U.S. and its cast iron artists. So yes, in closing, thank you to all of our other individual supporters on Patreon. The funds there that everybody contribute are invaluable to help me to continue to afford to put on the show. And if you don't have it in your budget to support the podcast Iron on Patreon, it's okay. I understand. Instead, if you could just share this podcast with someone you think would be interested in listening or watching, and I'll appreciate that just as much. Anything and everything helps. And from that, I say thank you from the bottom of my heart. If you want to get in touch with me, you can email me at thepodcastiron@gmail.com. And lastly, I want to include a little shameless plug for myself. You may not know this, but I have a personal YouTube channel that is separate from the Podcast Iron account, and it's titled after my Instagram moniker, Cast Iron Gypsy. This YouTube channel chronicles my artistic adventures, mostly in iron casting, and I just posted a video of my experience making a life-size Belgian waffle in cast iron. So if you're interested in seeing my experience cooking the waffle, making the molds, and then traveling to an iron pour to get the molds filled with molten cast iron, feel free to check out the video on the Cast Iron Gypsy YouTube channel. And I also recently have posted a video about my experience at this summer's past 2023 Fire at Night event, and that was at Sculpture Trails in Salisbury, Indiana. So if you attended that event, you might actually be in some of the footage. But that's it for now. Thanks again for listening and watching. I'm sending you all my love always, and I can't wait to share the next episode with you. I'll talk to you soon, and have a great day.